But one of the reasons was to try to standardize our approach a little bit more between the two practitioners or two main practitioners in our office. And then, of course, bring that knowledge back to our associate doctor. And then the other reason was that we were doing fine, but we wanted to do well, right? And there was just a difference there for us. There was just little things, especially like even my language, right? Like what I'm saying, how efficiently I'm saying it, how confidently I'm speaking to patients about these procedures, and just to gain a little more knowledge and clarity around the device and implementation, and really, ROI and benefit to the practice as well.
Hello and welcome to the Crystal Podcast on iCode Media. Today, I'm excited to have a conversation with Dr. Nicole Maldonado. And Nicole and I have had some interactions recently over the last year that have been inspiring to me. And I wanted her to kind of take us through her journey within her approach to practice pillars, and specifically with IPL, but also if that spills over into other practice topics. I think it'd be really interesting. So please enjoy our conversation. As always, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, write a review, share it with your friends, and support those who support us. The most common questions I get include, what ophthalmological codes or evaluation and management codes should I use? What ICD-10 codes do I need to bill with this CPT code? What CPT codes can be billed together and what can't? And my favorite, how do I manage a patient who has diabetes who comes in for a quote-unquote routine eye exam? These questions really highlight the confusion and uncertainty that serves as a daunting hurdle for providers, makes it more challenging for them to care for their patients and provide those patients with the best opportunity for a lifetime of ocular health and clear vision. That's why we built iCode Education, for this specific purpose. Our mission is to provide optometrists with resources to help you understand disease states, revenue cycles, and billing and coding so that you can put that on autopilot and truly care for your patients. Check out iCodeEducation.com. That's EYECODE education.com. We've developed a premier billing and coding bundle that includes all of our billing and coding resources in one place. We also have a 10% discount code just for listeners of this podcast. Enter the coupon code EYECODEMEDIA22 at checkout. We'd love to work with you. Check out iCodeEducation.com. Hello, dedicated optometrists. Are you looking for a way to support your patient's vision and overall eye health? Let me introduce you to Vision Edge Pro, a visual performance supplement that stands out in our profession. Vision Edge Pro contains a balanced blend of mesozeaxanthine, lutein, and zeaxanthine in a 10-10-2 ratio. This combination has been scientifically shown to increase macular pigment density, which enhances visual performance, including contrast sensitivity and vision in glare situations. Additionally, Vision Edge Pro provides 300 milligrams of DHA and EPA, fulfilling the daily requirements for omega-3s as recognized by the leading health organizations. This ensures your patients receive the essential nutrients their eyes need for optimal health. Whether it's for everyday screen use, night driving, or enjoying the outdoors, Vision Edge Pro supports your patients in seeing their best. Recommend Vision Edge Pro for your patients today and help them achieve clearer, healthier vision. Contact your local MacuHealth representative for more details. Vision Edge Pro, because your patients deserve the best in eye health. Go to MacuHealth.com and use the coupon code PODCAST2024 at checkout for special discounts. So, Nicole, thanks for doing this, by the way.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Tell us a little bit about your practice in general, kind of where you practice, how you practice, your approach to practice. Kind of give us a little bit of background.
Yeah. So I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, and we're practicing in San Antonio, Texas. I went to U of H for optometry school, graduated in 2016, and started with a vision source practice there in San Antonio. So I've been there for almost 10 years now, and bought into the practice as a partner 5 years ago. And so we've been practicing there. I've been very lucky to work with Dr. Scott Sitterly, who established his vision source practice back in the early 90s. And so it's a well-established practice that's been focused on primary care. And we've done really well. It's a really, successful practice. And we were just, when we went to the IPL workshop recently, we've kind of decided, hey, let's bring in some of this new technology, new devices that we can bring to our patients.
What so before we get into the workshop, sort of take me through. Did you already? I can't remember. Did you already purchase an IPL? Were you thinking about an IPL? Did you know which patients you wanted to use it for? Had you already started I know you say primary care, and my sense is from what I know of you that primary care does encompass a number of different sort of what I would call pillars: glaucoma management, AMD management at a high level. Were you already doing that with dry eye?
So, yes and no. When we went to the workshop, we were treating dry eye, but not very systematically, I guess, right?
Mm.
We do have all of those pillars. We've been treating glaucoma, we've been treating dry eye, we've been treating the normal things that primary care optometry does, right? We had purchased an IPL probably about 9 months prior to attending the workshop. So we had it. We had made the decision at that point that that was something we wanted to focus on. So when we purchased that piece of equipment, we purchased it in October of last year. So we hit a year with it in October of 2025. And it's done well for us. We're happy that we did that. But even prior to purchasing the piece of equipment, we really made the decision that that was something that we wanted to systematically focus on.
And when you say systematically, is it that you pretty well had, like, you knew what you were going to do for a patient who had glaucoma in terms of follow up, in terms of staging, mild, moderate, severe, in terms of how often I'm going to do a field, how often I'm going to do OCT, gonio, photos, etc. And you knew what your kind of like first line treatment, second line treatment, third line treatment were going to be. Kind of, was that laid out on purpose? Was it laid out just well in your mind from training? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think a lot of doctors go in with like really good intentions, and that's kind of where we were too. We went in with really good intentions to like have a system. Did we actually have one? No, we didn't, but we're like, okay, we're going to put effort into this, right? It's something that we are going to focus on. And I think that we kind of made it up as we went along, basically, and we kind of found our protocols as we were starting with this. So we didn't wait to purchase it. We just kind of on a whim were like, hey, let's buy this piece of equipment. It's something we've been wanting to get into, which is what I think a lot of doctors do, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a big, and it's not just with IPL, but IPL is particularly,
yeah,
purchasing an IPL puts doctors particularly at in a place where they're susceptible to the idea that they're going to buy it and then it's just going to work.
right.
I don't know why that is, but in particular, like dry eye widgets. And now cosmetic widgets, and I've done a monologue on this. They've become blended together in many ways, and it's seductive to think I'm going to do this, and it's gonna be successful for my patients and successful for my practice. And almost always, and you saw this at the workshop, almost always that's not the case. And you may have seen, obviously you came to the workshop, but you had some success before that. So talk about where you positioned, like when you got your IPL in the first place. Did you think, well, like, tell me about how you looked at it, how you thought about the patients that would benefit from it. Like, walk me through that before the workshop, the thinking before that.
Yeah, I think it actually started for me a couple years prior. We actually purchased our ERG. Okay, and so when we purchased our ERG, yeah, and so when we purchased our ERG, that was one of the first times I was like, okay, I'm going to spend this chunk of money, right? what is my ROI going to be on this, right? When we're looking at it from an ROI perspective, not just a, helping patients perspective, or beneficial for patients perspective. But I created a report in our practice management system to help me track how many ERGs we were doing. And when I had spoken with the rep about this, we were thinking about purchasing our ERG piece of equipment, we had kind of talked about, oh, well, based on how many patients you're seeing, you should be able to, do this many ERGs and your ROI should be this within this amount of time. And you always get that from reps, right? It's like, if you see this many people, then it will pay off in this many months or whatever. And I was like, you know what? I've never actually done it. Like, I've never actually tracked it before. And so before, right as I bought the ERG, I created a report that said, like, okay, let me just see how many ERGs I'm going to do, right? And it worked. Okay, so we were able to see how many we were doing.
So like, how did you say, okay, did you do it just like we talk about, where you say, this is my patient population, this is the likelihood of them having this condition, this is where ERG is beneficial for the patient with that condition? You actually like stratified all of that.
We did. So we looked to see, how many, based on our current patient population, who's this beneficial for? Who can I use this on? What's my projection? Like, how many of these should I, how many patients is this going to be beneficial for, right? And then we tracked how many it actually was beneficial for, right? So not only did we have a goal per se, we had are we actually doing it, right? So I would run that report every month, really, and it was pretty easy to set up. I call the practice management company, and they just helped me do it. I asked a lot of dumb questions on my practice management when I first started that helped me make these reports. Yeah, and especially 9 years ago, 8 years ago, I didn't know how to use it.
So what I think is good about that is that I think that the positive things are that you projected what your specific practice looked like and where you believe the technology would fit. And I think a lot of times when we listen to reps, they're going to tell us like all these different, they're going to tell you like, well, it's all these patients, and there's a particular company right now that I've been picking on, but you just have to have the patients look down, and 100% of them need this medication, and so like it can be easy for us to buy into it and to be like, oh yeah, this is cost this much, there's this many patients, but that just totally ignores the fact of what the patient needs and the fact of how your clinic runs. And so then when you put it through the filter that you did, I think with the practices that we talk to, very successful practices, it's very unusual for them to do that the first time. So kudos to you for doing it. But it also forces you to...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
When we did it with the ERG, right, I was like, oh, okay, now I know how to do this. This is a little bit lower level, a little bit less investment, on that piece of equipment. But then when we were thinking about bringing in the IPL, I'm like, oh, well, we know how to do this now, right?
Yeah.
Like I can track this, right? And so still this rep is really harping on me. Like, okay, you have such a big practice. You're going to have so many people. And even still, I was still really skeptical. Like, I don't know how many dry eye people I really have. I don't know how prevalent this is. I'm unsure about spending all this money. Whatever our fears were. But it felt really, it felt really safe almost. I know that sounds funny, but it felt safer to really say, okay, well, I know I can track this, project this. And yeah, it looks like it's a good investment for us.
Yeah, and I think that's the key is you're applying you're applying the technology to your practice and your patient population, and then that's the first part. And so you're comfortable with the initial purchase of it because you know where it's going to fit and you know how it's going to fit in your clinical protocol. And then you can even start to envision like, okay, well, I'm going to run it with this test and that test when I want to see, a functional analysis and so you're starting to align things so that they're going to work within your practice the way that your practice works. And then the second thing I really like is that you tracked it. Now, a lot of times when people purchase equipment, even if they've gone through step one, they're not tracking it to keep it front of mind to make it habit. So now my suspicion is that your ERG, when you order it, it's not habit because you're ordering it individually for individual patients, but you know where you want the information and you know where it's going to be beneficial and the habit has been formed. And so that's why I like the tracking sheet idea of it is it forces you to track that for some finite period of time. And you can go infinitely, obviously, but some finite period of time that's long enough for you to track to create a habit. So then you apply that to IPL and you did the same sort of thing where it feels like, well, this big purchase isn't so risky because I know I'm going to have patients. I know I already have patients. So how did you, like, what were the indicators that you looked at to know that if you purchase the IPL, it's not a risk. It's just something that's going to benefit your patients and then benefit your practice. Like what were the key things you were looking at?
We made the purchase. And then, of course, right, all of the fear sets in still. Even though we have a decent plan, we're like, okay, man, we really do have to use this. Okay, how do we do that? We went through their training that they put us through, and I think just really paying attention. This is just kind of odd, but I always tell myself it only takes like 30 seconds of courage, right? I need like 30 seconds of courage to implement something. Okay. And so this is even just like they told us, okay, you need a screener, right? And we tried dry eye screeners in the past and it didn't stick. And so
you mean questionnaires?
Questionnaire. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we're using the DEQ5 right now. And so, we just picked one, right? I think the rep listed a few of them. That's the one we picked. Right. It took me 30 seconds to Google it and print it out. Right. And gave it to the front desk and said, we start tomorrow. Right. And we just gone through the all day training. So we didn't have patients that day, or I would have said, let's start this afternoon. But we said, let's start tomorrow. Like, I'm not ready for this, but we're going to go ahead and do it because it's important and beneficial to our patients, to start serving this population with dry eye.
So then that worked out well. What was it enticing? So, all right. So you said 30 seconds of courage before I get to the next part. When you say courage, you should mean like, I got to say, let's start. That's the courage that happens. So you just have to start somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like, there's certain things, and these are like silly things even for me. This is a little off dry eye topic, but just like, man, I need to send that email to somebody who I, am intimidated by, or I need to ask for help, or I need to, like, I'm not sure how to prescribe this medication, right? That's a really vulnerable thing, I think, for some, doctors to say. It's like, hey, this is...
And it's getting harder and harder. Most medications are getting harder and harder to prescribe because you got to remember which pharmacy that you got to go to. And,
what's the dosage? There's new ones coming
what's
out.
What's the bottle
and so
size?
And so I think a lot of this applies to how we really implemented, dry eye and IPL and, in our practice is that like, man, there were so many times of that, like, okay, if I'm really going to start this dry eye practice, right? And we actually did just do our DBA as a dry eye center. And so if I'm really going to do this and commit to this, right, then there's going to be times where I'm just really not going to be totally sure what I'm doing in that moment, right? Or like, this is something new that I'm starting. Mm-hmm. Not that we're not capable of it, just that, and not that we're not well trained as doctors, just that we are stepping into new territory, right?
Yeah.
And so
then what drove you? So did you go to the IPL course, the workshop in March, or did you go in
August.
August?
Yeah,
Yeah.
August. Hmm.
So where were you at? So you had used it for, at that point, let's say it was 8 months. You had integrated it into your practice for 8 months. What were
Hmm.
you seeing when you saw the opportunity for the workshop? Sounds like you had already taken a pretty decent approach to your ocular surface disease practice.
Hmm.
What did you say, like, this isn't working the way I want to, or I need to improve upon this? Like, why did you take the time out of your practice, you and your partner, to come
Hmm.
to Houston for the day and a half to figure it
Yeah,
out?
I think it was twofold for sure. Like by all means, I thought we were doing fairly well, right? Like I thought we had implemented okay. We had followed the rep's advice. We had stumbled and picked it up, and we were doing well. Um, One of the reasons was to get both doctors on the same page, right? We actually do have a third associate doctor as well. But one of the reasons was to try to standardize our approach a little bit more between the two practitioners or two main practitioners in our office. And then, of course, bring that knowledge back to our associate doctor. And then the other reason was that we were doing fine, but we wanted to do well, right?
Mm.
And there is there was just a difference there for us. There was just little things, especially like even my language, right? Like what I'm saying, how efficiently I'm saying it, how confidently I'm speaking to patients about these procedures, and just to gain a little more knowledge and clarity around the device and implementation, and uh, really, ROI and benefit to the practice as well.
And if I understand correctly, you're primarily, so during the comprehensive exam, if you or any of the other two doctors see a patient who has some sort of ocular surface problem, you're the one that's going to be managing that ocular surface problem in depth. Is that correct? Or they will still manage their own patients?
Um, we've really moved to each doctor managing their own patients. I think for a little while I was spearheading it, and even before we went to the workshop, sometimes the other doctors would have their dry eye patients schedule with me. But now we've done some more training and we've standardized our systems a little bit better. And so we're able to have each doctor do it, take care of their own patients, right? And treat their dry eye patients with pretty good standards across the board.
I think I've seen it both. I've seen both ways work really well for different practices. So I think making sure that that the practice takes an intentional approach about, is this something that we're going to have a subspecialist in our practice just do that thing? The problem, so if practices have to overcome, I want to kind of talk about both of these ways and where I see pitfalls in each, but also
Yeah.
opportunities in each. The
Yeah.
the problem with, and I can tell you, I had a call yesterday with somebody that is a very, very, she's in a multi doc practice, and she's a very great dry eye doc, very good, and they've done a very good job of making her the pretty much the only doc in the practice that does kind of, I'll call it complex dry eye, like
Mm-hmm.
beyond
Mm-hmm.
artificial tears and restasis and
Yeah.
compresses and lid scrubs, right? But and it works great in their practice. But the key for them, the pitfall for that is, you don't set up appropriate triggers at the comprehensive exam that all the other doctors understand and believe in. So if you don't do that, they're never going to feed patients into the specialist,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the pitfall. But if you can set very simple things during the comprehensive exam that every doctor believes is important,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's a trigger for them to refer to the specialist, then it really works. But a lot of times it's hard, and some of it is incentive based. based, but it's hard because if the doctor doesn't believe that those triggers are existential to the patient's future well-being or current well-being, then they can just wait until the patient gets worse and worse and worse, and then they just wait for a long time, and that patient just never gets served by the practice. They find another practice, or it's just really hard for that specialist to build up a patient population. On the other hand, the way you have done it, the problem with that in many cases is every doctor wants to have their own sort of wishy-washy approach.
It's different.
And I don't mean wishy-washy as necessarily a bad thing. It definitely it sounds bad, but the way that you approach a patient and the way that your partner approaches a patient, the way your associate approaches a patient throughout that entire process, it's okay to have some nuance and some difference as clinicians, but there should be a very well thought out plan. And then if you stack it with the challenge of, well, Nicole is really good at being efficient and having conversations with the patient about IPL or LipiFlow or tear care or, XtemV or whatever, right? Like your conversations are better, then I also then have to get the associates doctors' conversations better and the other partner, their conversations better. So there's, as opposed to like, if you just refer everything to the specialist, all we have to work on is that one specialist outside of the comprehensive exam. So anyway, I think that they're both good. I generally like, if I were going to default to kind of my comprehensive mentality, then I would choose your way. But it doesn't mean that the way that you do it is the best way. It just means it's working really well for your practice, and that's important. So
it's so hard. Yeah. It's so hard to decide, which way is best. We've tried both. I am the main clinician, right, for our practice as well. So I'm there the most. I see the most people. And it's, for a while, I think that worked pretty well. But it really got to the point where it was like, okay, I'm really booked, right? Yeah. I'm really full. And, this is something that if it's going to be sustainable, we're going to have to figure out how to apply this the best we can. Like, it's not perfect, obviously. Sure. Everybody, every doctor has their nuances, but best we can try to standardize that, across the board, as far as like decision tree approach.
Yes. Yeah. CooperVision and the AOA have joined forces in a groundbreaking initiative to transform how optometrists treat children with myopia. The Myopia Collective aims to unite our profession and its allies to challenge the status quo and elevate the standard of care for children with myopia. Everyone is invited to become a member of the collective. By joining, you pledge to act in slowing childhood myopia progression. Membership includes regular updates and information about the collective's efforts, access to educational opportunities and resources, and insights from the ambassador optometrists who advocate for community policy and changes supporting the collective's mission. Click the link in the show notes to join the collective today. If you're ready to stop feeling overwhelmed and start running a safer, more profitable practice, here's the next step. First, book a strategy call with us, Practice Performance Partners. We'll uncover the biggest risks and opportunities in your practice. Then, choose the package that fits your goals. From there, we'll get you launched with confidence, with clear systems, with expert support, and with peace of mind, knowing your practice is protected and set up to grow. Don't wait until something goes wrong. Book your strategy call with us, Practice Performance Partners, today. So then what was you when you went to the workshop, what do you think was the most valuable? Because the reason I asked you to come on is I saw you maybe 2 months after, I think 2 months after in San Antonio, and you're like, we're killing it. It's great. Everything. I mean, so tell me about what was the most valuable things that you took away from that workshop.
I think I definitely thought about this, a lot after we talked, and it was like, number one, we executed much more consistently, right? One of the main things is that our dry eye questionnaire, right? Our DEQ, we just decided after the workshop that we were going to schedule everybody with a score of a 7 and above back for a dry eye evaluation. So we had been doing that, sort of. We
Mm-hmm.
weren't committed to it, right? And we definitely weren't all on the same page. Not all of, there's three of us, three doctors. We weren't all on the same page there. And it was like, okay, maybe if this one 10 kind of looks bad, maybe that's a good one to bring back, right?
Yeah.
And so, oh, this patient, man, I kind of ran out of time and I forgot to talk about it, right? I would hear that from doctors. It's like, okay, we're really going to focus on 7 and up. It's just our system. That's what
Mm-hmm.
we're doing, right?
How did you? So then, what did it sound like to the patient? Was it the doctor that was responsible for that follow up, or did you push it off to a team member to say, hey, your symptoms? I mean, tell me about who is doing that and how did
Yeah,
it
so
sound?
this is fun because we did it for a month, right? We started in August when we came back, so maybe like a month and a half. But then to the point that tracking makes everything easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
It lets you see where you're at. We tracked it, right? And I said, okay, let's see what's our goal? How
What was
many
your
do we want to
trackable
see?
event? So I
Right.
like to work through this. So what was your
Yeah.
trackable event to know at the comprehensive exam you were finding the right number of patients?
Yeah. So we track, we track external photos, right? And
Okay.
so we don't maybe we should do more, external photos for other things, other pathologies, ulcers, stuff like that. But the good majority of our external photos are going to be our dry eye patients. And so, give or take a few, um, we track that number. And we were tracking that prior to going to the workshop. But
Mm-hmm.
after the workshop, it's like, okay, well, how many do we want? Right?
Yeah.
Like that was a big turning point for us after the workshop, right? And the other turning point was our conversion rate. And so
Yeah.
this
So
this
the number of treatments based on how many photos you took.
right, right,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I love that. That was like a big one for us, I think, as a practice for myself, definitely. And again, this speaks more to the business side of optometry, but
Well, I want to take a step back because again, for the listeners who haven't talked to me drone on about this,
yeah,
the idea is like you're setting your goals based on prevalence data, right? So
yeah.
so you're not tracking this purely. I think a lot of people get it is a business tracking metric, right?
Hmm.
But it's in my mind, I take the reason that the business tracking metric is important is because it speaks to the little thing in our brain that says I have to have something really shiny, otherwise my services aren't worth it, and that's built. It's built in because of insurance plans. It's built in because of kind of the nature of having a glasses or contact lens sale that comes from a undervalued exam in many cases, and that glasses or contact lens sale supports the undervalued exam if you just have the opportunity. So it's not that. But what I want to try to do, and what I think that Nicole you're alluding to is, listen, that I have to make that work in my mind to not have to worry about it. But what's most important is how many patients do I think, based on prevalence data in my practice, have dry eye and MGD?
Hmm.
And if you don't have that perspective, then you're just walking into a room with like, well, I'm seeing 100 patients. Is it 5 patients that have
Right,
dry eye? Is it 30? Is it 70? What should I expect? And then that's your anchor point. So now you go into the literature and say, what's my anchor point? What am I supposed to expect when I see this? Because then if I don't identify it, then it's a me problem, right?
right.
Or my patient population is so dramatically different from what the prevalence data suggests, in which case you've got to wonder, well, why is that the case? Am I in a really unique area of the country? Are my patients healthier? Are they? So, but it forces you to actually have something to anchor to. So anyway, and then it becomes a business metric after that.
Right. Hmm. Yeah, and when you look up the prevalence data, right, it definitely matches. So it's so cool, right, to see that. It's like, oh, yep, this makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's something in the 6 to 10% range of people who are actually diagnosed with dry eye, right? But then there's a 20 to 30%, of your patient population that probably has dry eye and hasn't been diagnosed. So it's somewhere around there. Anyway, we set a low ball goal of 30, right? We hit it. And so,
Wow.
it's just something that was really cool to see, and say like, hey, like we're actually serving the patient population. We are serving this patient population that we already know is there, right? And we've identified them, and we are helping them, assisting them in treating this really, truly chronic, progressive disease. And so that's really cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's cool too because, you didn't from the sounds of it, you didn't extend like I think you could argue from my trigger, and that I think is really important in my practice. When I talk about creating triggers, I think about this is something that you'll never turn away from, because you believe it's existential to the future well-being or the current well-being of that patient. And whether it's next month, next year, 5 years, 10 years, at some point, if you do nothing now, then that patient is going to be worse off in the future. Mm-hmm. And so my trigger is much earlier than yours, in the sense of, not that it's better. It's just earlier in the sense of like not relying on symptoms in order to try to have intervention. And that may be where you get to at some point. But the reason I love your symptom score as the trigger is that you set 7, which is already into the moderate range of DE?
Yeah, it's yes. I think on DEQ, on DEQ it's technically 0 to 6 is very minimal. 7 to 11, I think, or sorry, 0 to 5 is minimal. 6 to 11 is that mild to moderate stage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like you can't really argue that you were being really aggressive, because you already were just self-selecting patients that were mild to moderate symptomatology. And so like, it's very clear that like in your practice, that's 30% of a comprehensive care practice with just symptomatology of mild to moderate.
Yeah.
In a very good, probably, and when I say run of the mill, I don't mean like run of the mill as in like not good practice. I mean like this is the type of clinic that anybody could have if you just pay attention. Right. And so then what was the conversation when those patients had the DEQ of 7? And you pull the slit lamp away, my analogy of great news, Nicole, you've got a new prescription. And then what did you say?
Yes. So that's exactly how I do it. I pull the slit lamp away. That's where I built it in, right?
It's the money shot.
Yeah, I may have subconsciously got that from you. I don't remember. But I pull the slit lamp away and I say, the front of your eye looks great, right? But... right? Your dry eye score, your DEQ score today was this, right? And it's just very simple. I think you're totally right. In the future, and we're screening a couple other ways. We are using mybography, but in the future, we're definitely going to evolve. You can already feel it happening, where it's not just paying attention to symptoms. But I think that using that DEQ screener routinely and having a threshold cutoff is a really clean cut way to take down that barrier to entry on starting a dry eye practice, right? It is just easy. And so it's like, all right, if I do nothing else, this is what I'm doing. And I can do that continuously, systematically, and serve that patient population pretty well, right? Yeah. And so
I'm going to push you a little bit more, because I want to hear, I want you to pretend like I'm the patient.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It always makes people uncomfortable.
This is fun. Yeah.
But people love this because I think it's really helpful. So go ahead. I'm the patient. Pull the slit lamp away. I got a DEQ of 7.
DEQ of 7. Okay, great. All right. All right. So Dr. Wolfe, the front of your eye looks great. Okay. But your dry eye score today came in at a 7. Right? Typically 0 to 5 is normal, right? And so anybody in our practice, if we see a score of a 7 or up, we schedule them for a dry eye evaluation follow-up. Do your eyes feel dry?
Yeah, they
And,
do. When I'm on a computer, they burn and they're kind of gritty.
yeah, and so those are definitely the symptoms that we're looking for. Are you using anything for the dry eye right now?
Sometimes I use some artificial tears occasionally if
Great.
it bothers me enough.
Yeah, great. So I love a good artificial tear. I love a good preservative-free artificial tear. I'll show you my favorite before you leave here today, and we'll go ahead and have our staff get you scheduled for that dry eye evaluation.
Okay, great.
That's it.
That, so and so you don't. That's interesting. So it's great. Thank you for sharing that. Um,
Hmm.
the your initial step at the comprehensive exam is artificial tears.
Yep.
Is that
Hmm.
that's it?
Hmm. Well,
Okay.
okay, so that's like an average 7, right? At least in
Sure.
my mind, right? It's like, okay, we're not going to leave you hanging, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to show you my favorite tier, and that's going to get you to your dry eye evaluation. We're
Yeah.
going to
No,
feel
I'm not
better.
being critical. No, I
Yeah, yeah,
think
yeah.
I'm not being critical. I just like to explore why people do
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah, totally.
And and I there's this kind of this back and forth that people go through of like, should I do anything because it's routine? You know, I'm not going to
Hmm.
do anything
Right.
that's not dry
Right.
eye or that's related to dry eye.
I have
And I
battled this in
think
my head.
that's
Yep.
you what?
Yeah, I have battled this in my head. Like, where is my line?
Yeah.
Right? Where
Yes.
where is
Yeah.
my line? And I do extend over my line sometimes, right? If I
Optometrists
see
generally
things,
do.
yeah.
Our
If I
hearts
see
our
things
hearts
like
get in the way.
blepharitis, yeah. If they're an 18 score on the DEQ, I will probably throw some stain in there that day, right?
Hmm.
Like there are times where I'm like, okay, this patient's hurting and needs me today, right? At a 7, it's probably not true, right? Um, but in a standard way, especially when you're seeing all these other comprehensive patients, your schedule's full. You do have to move on. Um, I've done my due diligence there. That's how I feel about it. We've given them something to improve their symptoms for now, and we have made sure that we are scheduling them back so that we can really address this at a completely separate and billable exam. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can give it its due. I mean, I think that's the thing is like, so I mean, I'm going to resist my temptation to teach.
Yeah.
I think it was really good, and I think, to me, it doesn't matter so much what that first step is, as long as there is a first step. It's a clearly laid out first step. So you really had 2 steps, right? Here's my favorite artificial tear. Step 2 is we're going to schedule you back, right?
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
and those 2 steps are very clear for the patient. They're and then what it does is it gives that patient an opportunity to come
Mm-hmm.
back, and now you are forced to figure it out.
Right.
And I think that's the critical part that we've learned over years and years of working with practices is where the mistakes are made are there's no clear follow-up. So actually
Mm-hmm.
there's 2 mistakes that we see made often within integrating any new technology. But forget about whether it's IPL. I think IPL it gets people to come to the workshop because that's the thing that they all bought and they want to make
Yeah.
work better in their practice. But really it's about managing patients with dry eye. And where I think people make mistakes on dry eye in general is they buy an IPL or a widget and they try to make the recommendation of that thing from the comprehensive exam. And they haven't really distinguished whether or not like this patient has Demodex or has has neurotrophic keratitis or has exposure,
Right.
or they just think, well, we're going to use IPL for everything.
Right.
And then they get into this problem of trying to talk too much during the comprehensive exam. They go down
Mm-hmm.
all these different rabbit holes, and then the patients never come back for
Right.
the IPL. I don't think that was a problem. If I remember right, you weren't having that problem. You were separating your comprehensive exam from the ocular surface evaluation. But maybe
Typically,
not. But
yeah,
you
typically,
were
but I
before.
think it was kind of it was a little ambiguous, right? It's like
Mm,
sometimes we
yeah.
would and sometimes we wouldn't. And so part of the reason that we talk about, artificial tears and come back is because it's not, not that there's not other things that we should do sometimes, but it's very easy for me, my partner, and our associate doctor to do that. Those are
Yes.
two steps that are
Yep.
clear, defined, and easy, and we can all do them systematically. And so, like when I see, right, blepharitis, Demodex, right, I may also suggest, hey, you need to do lid scrubs and compresses, and I frame it as we're going to do a 2 week lid follow up, right? And
Yep.
I run their full dry eye evaluation, and we already know, right? So sometimes I do give scrubs. It's a pretty, easy one, and we kind of know what's going on already, but we still get that follow up data. We have an Oculus, we run their dry eye reports, stuff like that. Um, and I do mention that, like, okay, if I don't see some improvement at that, dry eye evaluation, right, these may be our next steps. Or some people will tell me other things, right? You're like, yeah, I feel the burning and stinging. Um, but other people will tell me, like, yeah, in the morning, it's awful, right? It's awful. It's always when I wake up. And so if I hear that, I'm thinking, like, okay, well, try this ointment at night,
Yep.
right? And then we'll see you back. So there might be some nuances in there, but there's always the see you back step. And it's really, we aimed after the workshop at dialing it down to just really direct, actionable steps for the staff and the patient.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, and I think that's key. And I think what you find is, well, one, I think people put too much stuff at the beginning, so they either will do nothing because they think, well, I got to get the medical for this, right? So
Yeah.
they'll do nothing, or they will and or they will do too much. They'll put they'll do 3 or 4, 5 different things, and it's just like, man, nobody's going to get that, or nobody's going to do it, or you're just taking a shotgun and you're making the cost too high for the patient initially.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, so I think, doing I'd say my recommendation is any one or three, right? Any one of these or all of these, do them, right? Whichever you
Yeah, that's
believe
a good
is
one. Mm-hmm.
compresses, lid scrubs, tears. I don't care what you pick. I don't care if you pick all of them. I don't care if you pick one of them, but pick something and then start there, and then have them back. The other thing I think that you find, and you articulated this, is that patients are way more willing to start talking about things
Mm-hmm.
if when you are interested in them and ask them about them. So follow-up questions start to come, and then it's like, how do we shut that off? So like the what ifs, and I as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking you've done a pretty good job of not allowing the comprehensive exam to be taken over by the
Right.
dry eye evaluation. So and there is an art to that where you're like, I think when you say the first thing we do is this, the second thing we do is that, that's pretty clear to the patient. It lets them know, like, okay, there's a lot more here.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to start with this first. So I think being very clear about saying, like, the first thing we're going to start with is I'm going to show you my artificial tear, my favorite artificial
Mm-hmm.
tear, and doing that already just kind of shuts down the, like, what if litany of questions that most doctors let get out of hand at the comprehensive exam, and it sort of
Right.
gets this runaway, and then they're excited to talk about their IPL, and they talk about
Mm-hmm.
their IPL, and it's
Right.
$1,200 for 4 treatments, and you're going to come back 4 times, and oh, by the way, and
Yeah.
the patient's like, what? I thought I
Yeah.
was getting glasses today,
Mm-hmm.
or I thought I
Yeah.
was here for my glaucoma evaluation today, and like, so it's just
Been there, done that. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
yeah, totally. Um, totally been there, done that. And it's hard. It's just really hard. And so I think in my mind, it's like, you know what? This is really important and we need to address it today. But today you came to see me for your comprehensive exam. Today I'm going to focus on your glasses, contact lenses, and I'm going to do a really, really good job there. Right? That's what I'm going to really focus on for you today. And I need you to know that this is important and I need you to come back for this. But I also think that when we start with artificial tears, we open up the conversation and then bring them back for that dry eye evaluation. Once we're really focused on the dry eye, it just really brings value to that appointment, right?
Right.
We talked about it, we addressed it, but we started on it, but just barely, right, at the comprehensive exam. And then it really allows the dry eye evaluation to have value, right?
Yes.
If I have taken everything or told you everything already at the first one, what's the point in coming back and, making this a, routine thing where we're seeing you for follow-ups and managing this chronic progressive disease.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, all right. So you started tracking, and you tracked your anterior psych photos with your treatments. Are there other treatments you're tracking, or just IPL? Are you tracking like punctal occlusion? Are you tracking, amniotic membrane? Sometimes you can kind of expand into that to see, well, like how many patients have neurotrophic keratitis that I might want to use an amniotic membrane for? How many patients, like, have you gone down that road?
We track all of it. Yeah. We track literally all of it.
I figured you would.
Yeah, we might be almost as big into tracking as you are, almost.
No, I'm sure you may be more.
Yeah, and so we track all of it. Have I done like all the prevalence data and all of, how many should I be doing on every single product? No. But do I know how many we do? Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so... and I know we know per doctor, we know per clinician, we even know per staff member. And so it's helpful. It's helpful. And when we track treatments, we can separate them out, but I actually just track. It's beneficial for me to track all treatments together. We throw low level light, radio frequency, IPL in there, and we kind of, say we did X number of treatments this month, and that's our goal. And I like it that way because not everybody qualifies for IPL, right? And, a lot of people do qualify for radio frequency. A lot of people do qualify for low level light. And it's like, it's not, I bought an expensive machine, okay? But it's not about that exactly, right? It's really about treating and serving these dry eye patients. And there's so many different types and presentations and reasons for dry eye that one treatment will, and you've talked about this, I think, before on the podcast, that one treatment just fits better, right?
Yep.
And so we think about it more like, okay, how many treatments are we doing? We want to know how well we're doing. But if I just tracked IPL, or just paid attention to each individual one, it's helpful to know the numbers, but I like them all together to say like, okay, from every angle, we're hitting this dry eye treatment.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's great. So, all right. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. Give us give the audience some parting words, some parting thoughts, about, maybe what was like, is there a thing that you're like, hey, tomorrow do this, it'll change the way you approach it?
Yeah. So really, I think kind of just like we mentioned before, I think that if just decide basically that this is
30
something
seconds of courage.
Yeah. That's my second one, right? So number one is decide this is what you want to do, right? Number two, you have 30 seconds of courage, right? You're like, all right, I'm going to step into this action. I'm going to step into this today. And tell yourself that. And it's really fun to tell yourself that. It's really like, okay, I'm going to do this and I don't feel that great about it and I'm not sure and who knows what's going to happen. But I'm going to do it, right? And literally the third thing is just Google that DEQ5 and Google it. Okay. And start and literally print it out and hand it to your staff. And it literally does take 30 seconds to Google it, print it out, hand it to your staff and start today. Right.
Yeah.
And I would tell you
I
all
love
this.
That.
Yeah.
It'll tell you everybody that has dry eye symptoms in your practice and you'll be shocked.
And so when you do that, it's like, okay. And then anybody who scores over a 7, bring them back in 2 to 4 weeks for a dry eye evaluation. Okay. And then you have 2 to 4 weeks to learn how to really treat dry eye. And then you deep dive there. But you literally do that today and you'll have a dry eye practice, right? Yeah. And you'll be serving a community of patients that, and you can probably tell I think this, but it's just, I love dry eye, and I say that, right? But I love it because it's such an opportunity for optometrists to be doctors, right? It's such an opportunity for us to be doctors. It's such an opportunity. I have a personal vendetta with inflammation. And so I really take it personally. That's probably bad advice, right? But it's me against the inflammation, right? And
Yeah.
I want to figure out why it's there. I want to figure out, and it goes so much deeper, right? We can go into all of our patient stories. We can go into all of our, all the great things. We've come up on a year now, so it's really cool to see the DEQ from last year and then this year, right? Patient symptoms, and so seeing that is neat. Getting referrals from successful patients is really awesome. There's just so many good things that come with it, and you're just really, really serving a population that I think that we've somewhat forgot about. There's so many opportunities for us to improve and really take optometry, right, to this next level, to the future, right, and just go beyond that comprehensive exam.
Amen. Nicole, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun.
Appreciate it.